What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Trojan Dash. Wow, Anthony, that was pretty brutal. 62 to 33. USC suffered its one of the most historic blowout losses in the UCLA rivalry. It happened at the Coliseum, the fourth blowout loss for the Trojans this season. We're here to break it all down as we do every Sunday night when we don't have technical difficulties. Anthony, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, you said it. Technical difficulties, as always on Trojan Dash. I'm doing okay. All right. What about you?
You know, um, okay. You tweeted the other day about how campus during UCLA rivalry week is always so much fun, and it's so intense, and it's so everybody's in a good mood. There's conquest, everyone's having fun. Everyone, even people who aren't that invested in football, are all excited for the football game. The game didn't quite live up to the hype. It was pretty terrible from the start. Well, not from the start. I guess it was close early, but then things just got rapidly out of hand and it became quite disastrous, particularly and exclusively for the Trojans. So not a good night for USC. Like I said, the fourth blowout loss at the Coliseum all season. You had the first loss to Oregon State at the Coliseum since 1960. Utah's first road win since before the Coliseum was even built or something ridiculous like that. And then the most points USC has ever allowed to its crosstown rivals. So Anthony, how did it happen?
Well, how much time do you have?
Yeah,
we have 30
seriously.
minutes, and that's all the time we got. So I'll try to make it quick. I think really an underrated part of it was the beginning of the game when Dorian Thompson-Robinson threw for two receptions and USC got nothing out of it, no points, didn't capitalize. Which at that moment, you were expecting UCLA's offense to get into the groove, as the game progressed. So not capitalizing on those hurt them a lot because you would have at least been in a solid, a much better position than what was actually going to happen. And the defense, jeez, man, we've said it like a
What can you
million
say?
times.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, they were on pace for after the first half. UCLA was on pace for about 661 total yards. I mean, they almost matched it. They're over 600 yards, 600 total yards, which is insane. I mean, it's like video game numbers, and it was 62 points. It's like a basketball score. To be honest with you, like 62 to 33, it's insane. And a lot of miscues in the secondary. I think the whole game, the defense just looked lost. To be honest with you, it was just a mess. It really wasn't like they were playing football. I mean, they were just lost. There were so many possessions where UCLA players were just wide open. I honestly don't know what was going on. And that really hurt them. And obviously, some penalties. There was one drive, I think, it was the second quarter, where three or four penalties just in a row, just unnecessary penalties that killed them. There were a couple that were pretty odd. I know the Taj Washington pass interference call that really ruined the momentum when it was a deep ball. There was another one, I think it might have been Cal Ford or Joseph Manjack. I don't remember, but it was another third down conversion. So there were two third down conversions wiped away because of penalties. That obviously hurts your momentum. And really, I mean, I didn't think the offense particularly played bad. I thought they were all right. I thought the run game looked good. I thought Vivai Malapai, a quick shout out to him, redshirt senior. He's been around since 2016. His last UCLA game, he's got 3 rushing touchdowns. He played great. I thought the offense was all right, and I think the deep shots were great in the second half. Gary Bryant Jr. obviously had his best game as a Trojan, but really it was the defense. I mean, there's really no other way of saying it. It was the defense. It was terrible. It was really depressing. I think this was by far the worst performance, which is saying something because if you watch the other games, Oregon State, Stanford, it goes on and on. I mean, we didn't think it could get worse, but it got worse. So that's my how did that happen? Because there was a lot, and I'll let you take the rest.
Yeah, the defense now on the season is up to 32.2 points allowed per game and 417.8 yards per game. They allowed 609 yards to UCLA last night, which is not what you want to see. 62 points, obviously. But I want to talk a little bit about the offense too, because I think you're right. It wasn't like terrible. It wasn't good. Um, I mean, yeah, they put up 33 points. I thought a lot of it was that UCLA would just score so fast that they had the ball a lot. 9.2 yards per play for UCLA on the offensive side, which is just absurd. But I want to talk a little bit about Jackson Dart, too, because I think people are right to be excited about him. I think he's talented. I think he can run, he can pass, he can do all those things. I do think there was a little bit of people. How do I put this? People like people were so had such a weird distaste for Keaton Slovis, and they thought so low of him. Even though, look, you can think that Dart should have started, and you can think that Dart should have been the guy all season ever since he came in. But like Keaton Slovis is not that bad. He's obviously taken a step back since his freshman year, and maybe even a step back since 2020, in which he took a step back from his freshman year. But to me, it seems like people thought so low of him that they put these unfair expectations on Dart and expected him to come in and just be the guy in every facet of the game and just be this, otherworldly freshman who lit the world on fire. And granted, that's sort of what he did against Washington State, so it's not like it was completely out of nowhere. Like last night, 27 of 47, 325 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. It's okay, right? It's not like people like it just seemed like the way Dart was set up in this game as far as expectations go, he would have had to go 40 for 45 for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks for it to be like, oh, wow, this is what we were waiting for. And I think that there's something to the fact that he's a freshman and the fact that he's going to need time to grow. And yes, it's been hard the first couple of weeks of, this 2 quarterback system where they shuffle him and Keaton out, and it's like neither one of them can really get hot. So I get all of that, and I get that he was really good against Washington State. And again, I think that he's the guy of the future. I think he's going to be this team's quarterback for the next 2 years, and he's going to be a pretty good one. But I don't think it's fair to expect him to come in immediately in every single game, just be that guy, right? And throwing him into his first career start against UCLA, that adds another layer to it. And I just think that like people were obviously excited to see him play. He was okay. I don't think that should make people any less excited about who he is for the future. I was hearing some like, is Jackson Dart really that good? Like, I think he is. At the same time, does that make any sense? I don't know. Maybe I'm coming from nowhere out of this, but it just seems like people had such a weird thing against Slovis that Dart was all of a sudden like the greatest quarterback in college football history, which it felt a little unfair.
No, I definitely agree, 100%. I think some of it, I'm guilty of it too. I was very critical of Keaton Slovis throughout the season. God, I even wrote a column saying Jackson Dart starting is what we all wanted. There were unfair expectations. People forget he's still a freshman. He's still very raw, and he's going to need time. And he hasn't really had a full season. And being injured too, I feel like he's coming out. People forget he's coming off a torn meniscus. He's still probably not completely 100% at his confidence. And that was a UCLA team that was blitzing him heavy, and he was getting hit. There were lots of unfair expectations, and the Slovis criticism. I agree. I think it's kind of crazy, to be honest, the way that his trajectory, from freshman year to now, and the way that freshman year, the way everyone looked at him was, oh, he was the savior of USC. He was the freshman child and everything, and now it's kind of like the opposite. And I think it's unfair. I think it's definitely unfair because it's not like he was playing horrendous, terrible football. And he's always been a UCLA killer too. I mean, some of his best games have been against the Bruins. So I think it was unfair. Definitely unfair. And Dart, he didn't necessarily play an outstanding game. He made some freshman mistakes. One of his interceptions was a poor one, and he mentioned that it's going to take some time. And the criticism of Slovis, I 100% agree with you. It just doesn't make any sense. Like I don't know why he's now seen as like kind of like the devil, and everyone was waiting for Dart to come in, and it doesn't make any sense to me because even when him and Slovis was switching, it's not like Slovis was playing poor. He was still playing pretty well. So it doesn't make sense, and I wouldn't be surprised if now with this lower leg injury, and Dante Williams said he doesn't know if he's going to practice, if Slovis is going to practice tomorrow, if they just let him lay low, let Dart get some more reps, and then I wouldn't be surprised if Slovis is transferred out because really I don't know about the opportunities that are left here.
Yeah, and I think when they were doing the whole two QB thing, it was clear all along that they couldn't continue doing that, and they had to pick just one guy. And like we were saying last time, that doesn't necessarily mean just roll with Dart. It doesn't necessarily mean roll with Keaton, but like throughout that whole thing and throughout the whole season, they had been playing basically on par with each other. And if the point was to win games, you have to pick one of them to give you a better chance. But I don't know if there's one of them that was like far and away, having the better season and gives you the best chance to win in the short term. In the long term, obviously Jackson Dart, but I don't know. Those are kind of my 2 cents about Dart. I think it was a fine performance from him. I didn't think I obviously don't think he lit the world on fire, but I don't think we should have expected him to either. He's in a tough situation right now. It's a turbulent time to come in and just become the starter as a freshman in a season where, in theory, you were supposed to be backing up all year, and now you're being thrown into it after doing this weird 2 QB thing, after missing some time. You have an unstable head coaching spot. It's like there's just this whole combination of circumstances that are tough for a freshman quarterback to handle. And given all that, actually considering all that, he played pretty well. But I think occasionally we need to take a step back and say, okay, the kid's a freshman. He's going to be fine. He's not like immediately going to come in and be the guy that saves everything, because I don't think anybody can do that at this point. And that's largely because the defense was so bad. I mean, wow, that was probably the worst. You said it. We've seen some pretty bad defensive performances from this team this year, but this was, I thought, by far the worst. 9.2 yards per play, as we said. 609 yards of total offense through the air, on the ground, whatever, you name it. It was bad in the first half. They scored 28 points, and then they came out and made absolutely zero halftime adjustments, game plan fixes, and they scored 34. Oh, well, I guess technically 27 in the second half, because 7 of them came on a 100-yard kickoff return, so they didn't even do special teams well. But yeah, pretty bad performance by the defense. Todd Orlando would have had a lot of questions to answer if he had spoken to the media after the game, which is yikes. You can check out my column on USCNbergmedia.com for my thoughts on Todd Orlando. I won't get too much into that, but is there anything else to make of the defense? I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, yeah, it was really bad. I mean, and I'll actually want to mention one really interesting point. So Drake Jackson was pretty limited in this play. He was kind of only really used in third down type situations. And he was asked after the game if that was an injury, if that, what was going on. And he said it was actually a schematic thing, that he was in on third downs because that was the game plan. And then now Dante Williams tonight contradicts that and goes like, oh no, it was an injury. So there's something going on here. And obviously when you don't have some scholarship players on defense, that's going to hurt. But I mean, geez, it was like a pro day for half of UCLA's offense. They were just getting loose, and they were getting an open space, and it was just disgusting. It was crazy, but you said it all. I mean, I really honestly can't add anything else about the defense.
Yeah, why don't we get into a little bit of that contradiction thing? Because, by the way, if it was the game plan to only use Drake Jackson on third down, that's inexplicable. I can't understand the reasoning, the thinking behind that. But we've seen this kind of thing time and time again under Williams, where like the answers don't quite line up. Like during the whole quarterback thing, it was Keaton saying, I don't know when we're coming in, and then Dante saying this is the game plan. Dart and Keaton are saying this other thing. Harrell's like, just seems like nobody's really on the same page right now. And I think this is important to think about in the context of the season as a whole, because it's obviously been a disaster even after the Stanford game that got Clay Helton fired. And I want to talk about how much of this is on Dante Williams, because I see a lot of people saying he sounds just like Clay Helton when he talks about accountability and fixing things and giving wishy-washy answers sometimes. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. But also, if I can answer this question first, I think he was thrown into a really difficult situation right now. And I think after he got not hired, but promoted to the interim head coaching job after Helton was fired, you kind of had to approach the season as you can't really expect anything out of him. And I honestly, at the time, I could have seen that team. Granted, I had a perception of the roster as being better than it probably is. So I thought they could go, 8-2 the rest of the way after they went 1-1. I could also have seen them going 5-5. I didn't see it being this bad. They're 4-6 since, and my prediction they're going to be 4. Well, I guess I'm doing my math wrong. They're 3-4 5 since, and I could see them going 3-7 because I think they might lose the last 2 games to BYU and Cal. But in any case, I want to talk about how much of this is actually on him because he was talking tonight in his Zoom weekly Sunday press conferences about the fact that you can't change the culture in the middle of a season, and he was taking some heat for that. And I don't really understand that because he's right. He's absolutely right, and that's why people were saying rightfully that if you're going to fire Helton after one bad loss, you should have fired him in the offseason to give the new head coach a chance to completely revamp the culture in the offseason and then come in with an entirely different brand of football. But you can't do that kind of thing in the middle of the season. But now it's like because he's already played 8 games and lost 5 of them, now that he's saying that, sure, it seems a little excusey, and it might have been, something that you can say earlier on, like not after you lose by, 29 points to your hated crosstown rival. But like the premise of what he's saying is right. You can't change the culture as drastically as it needs to be changed in the middle of the season. And I also think he's probably not the right guy for the head coaching job. I mean, you just look at they're 3-5 since he took over. It seems like there's a lack of leadership there. There's some stuff people talked about. Was it Nick Figueroa or Brett Nealon? One of them talked about stuff going on behind the scenes, like people not playing for each other. I think that part was Figueroa. Not being accountable, not playing the brand of football that it seems like there's a lot of clubhouse stuff that shouldn't be going on. And granted, maybe not one interim head coach can fully fix, but it just seems like even though he might not be the right guy for the job, like what's unfolded this season, I don't know who could have stepped in and produced an outcome that's much different. Because I think also we're being hit with the reality that even though Clay Helton's gone, this is still Clay Helton's roster, Clay Helton's coaching staff, and it's just not that great. Like the team is just not that great all around. This is not a Dante Williams thing, and I think he's totally right. The culture can't be fixed like that. Yeah, what do you think, Anthony? How much of this is on Dante Williams? Because I think not that much.
Yeah, I have to agree. You can't change the culture and everything in the middle of the season, especially after 2 games. That stuff is really built over the offseason. You can make little adjustments, little things, but it's not going to do anything. And like you said, this is still much of Clay Helton's roster. The coaching staff is still the same. Nobody's really left. So I think there's not much of Williams' fault. I think there's something going on. You mentioned it a little bit with Brett Nealon and Nick Figueroa. I recommend watching those interviews because there was some weird energy in that. Brett Nealon, he's very mature with his responses. He's always a great interview, always is honest. Somebody asked him, like, how do you fix this? And he said, I honestly don't know. It's the same thing. I don't know if the interim or new head coach can do it. He gave a really crazy quote. I might be misquoting a couple words, but he said it's like banging your head on the wall multiple times and having the same result or something like that. And that just really kind of sums it up. I think some players are just not on the same page with Dante Williams. I think that in terms of that accountability factor, in terms of playing for each other, some players are just they're not buying in. And we can't sit here and speculate. This is just based on what players have been saying, what last night's press conference, how that went. There's something. And I don't think it's something that Dante Williams can fix. I don't think it's something that he created. It's just a lot of internal noise, a lot of locker room chatter, a lot of something that's going on that we don't really know about. There's really not much Dante Williams can do. It just can't. It's not in his position as an interim head coach to completely fix the program. Obviously, this is something for the new head coach. But I don't know what's going on. There's something. I think there's something that's underneath that we don't really know about. Because just from the body language of the players yesterday, some of those comments, very cryptic, very interesting. Brett Nealon in particular, usually don't get that type of contact from him, but he was brutally honest. Just simply him and Nick Figueroa saying players aren't playing for each other. There's no accountability. They don't know how to fix it. They don't know what's next. They were just completely lost, and I don't know where you go from there. I didn't think it could get worse, but here we are.
Yeah, and I think this team just needs a reset. from the top down, and that includes the roster too. Obviously, you don't want to lose talented guys like Drake Jackson, Drake London, those kind of guys. Like obviously, them leaving is not going to like help. But the roster as a whole, it seems like a lot of the issues this season have been the roster's not as good as people thought. And also, there's that weird not playing for each other accountability stuff. Everybody's sort of on their own little island thing. Stuff going on behind the scenes that obviously you and I, none of the media know about. Only the players really know about it. And they're not going to say what exactly is happening, neither are the coaches. So it's stuff that stays behind closed doors, but you can see the effects and how it spills over onto the field. And I think this also touches on a lot of people were saying after the UCLA game, like, this is rock bottom. And this is the lowest this team has ever been, at least in recent years. I don't agree with that because I think that this is the kind of thing that the new head coach can totally come in and fix. If you give him an offseason, the time that Dante Williams or whoever the new head coach was going to be should have had, because they should have fired Clay Helton in January rather than giving him one bad loss of a leash and then throwing the new guy in the middle of the season and trying to fix something that can't be fixed in that short amount of time. When you give the new head coach that much time and you give him time to sort of become familiar with the program, understand the problems that are happening, revamp the entire culture, it's something that can be fixed. I actually think the future outlook of this program is pretty good because they're going to hire a new head coach who's probably going to be pretty good. That's obviously, they have to get the right guy. But in the moment last night, sure, it might have been rock bottom because you just lost to UCLA by 29 points. You allowed 62 points on your home turf. You lost the victory bell. You lost all pride and dignity that you had by beating them last year. The one thing that could have been like somewhat of a silver lining to this, 2021 season was just, didn't happen, and it didn't happen by 29 points. So in the moment, rock bottom for sure. 2018, I will take this opinion to the grave. 2018 was worse for program, fan morale, all that kind of stuff than 2021 by far. Because 2018, and hindsight definitely helps with that, because 2018 was the first glaringly obvious sign that Clay Helton should probably not be here. And then he was around for 3 more years after that. But now we know that we're entering an era of transition, and we're entering a completely new era under a completely different head coach who has a chance to revamp the entire culture, who has a chance to revamp the entire coaching staff, which I think needs some revamping as well. So I think things are actually as awful as this season has been, as bad as the team has looked, as embarrassing as the losses have been, as demoralizing as the empty seats in the Coliseum might look. This is not rock bottom. I can't understate that. This is not rock bottom. Things are looking up once this season's over. In the short term, for the next 2 weeks, things are looking very, very down, very terrible. They're going to go 0-2 and miss the bowl game. They're going to be 4-8, which is just astoundingly bad. But this can all be fixed. It's not going to happen like that. And Dante Williams was saying tonight, this is the kind of thing that might take 2 to 3 years to fix. I agree, sure. But at least it's in the process of getting fixed, or it will be in the process of getting fixed soon. Dante Williams was dealt an impossible card coming in and taking over before week 3. And these are problems that he himself couldn't fix. Maybe he could have done a little bit better job of fixing them than he did. But maybe it would have been worse. Maybe they would have gone 2-8 over the last 10 games if it was somebody else, or if he did a worse job. Point is, this is bad. This is terrible. This is no fun for any USC fans, for sure. It's going to get better because the athletic department understands that these problems are problems that have to be fixed. For the last 3 years, that acknowledgement wasn't there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, look, it can't get any worse than this. And I think it's only going to be getting better because new coach, that's really the main thing. And I don't know about you, but I have a pretty good amount of trust in Mike Bohn and Brandon Sawson to figure out the right man for this program. I really do believe that. And I think this is what happens when you have an interim coach. I mean, there's going to be times like these where everything's going to be seeming like it's downhill, rock bottom, especially yesterday, but it's only going to get better. I mean, you can't get worse than this. And I really want to mention real quick that Brett Nealon quote because I found it. And he said, "It sounds like the same old story every time. We're just not playing together. Defense comes up big at the start. Offense doesn't really do much. Then offense gets a little hot, and defense lets up some scores and special teams and whatnot. this team's been through a lot, lots of ups and downs, and a lot of stuff behind the scenes. It just seems like the only time all three phases came together was Washington State in the second half. I thought that last part, that was really interesting. The Washington State, how only time the three phases have been together has been Washington State, which is kind of crazy to think about because that was about almost 2 months ago. And they've been Colorado since then and Arizona. You think about it, he's probably right. And none of this is Dante Williams' fault. What I'm trying to do with this Brent Nealon thing is the players are as frustrated as the fans, and I'm probably more frustrated. And things are just not looking good. But things can get better. Things will get better, obviously, with the new hire, which should be happening in the next month.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a lack of caring. Like, I don't think this team has come out flat in multiple games this year. I don't think they came out flat against UCLA. Like, I thought, and then you saw games like Arizona State and like Notre Dame. Like, they showed heart. This team, I promise you, they hate to lose. Like that, it isn't a problem of being invested. It's something else. It's something, whether it's chemistry, whether it's accountability, whatever it might be. It's something that goes beyond just simply caring. And I think that the reason why everything came together in the Washington State game was there was a spark. Dante came in, Dart came in, and it's like, okay, let's play for these guys. Let's actually probably more play for Coach Williams at that point. But it was like they were injecting a new life and a new energy into that program, and they came out and they played like it. And then maybe that wave died off, and that's when they started to struggle or continue to struggle, I guess, once you got into the thick of the season. But I think that's a sign that when things are on the up and up, like they will be with the new head coach, I think that this is a team that's going to buy in. It's a roster that's going to be invested. It's a team that cares. They care about winning these games. Everybody looked so disappointed after losing last night, as they should. So I don't think it's something like they just aren't invested or like Williams isn't inspiring enough or something like that. It's something beyond, and it's something that, like I said, I don't know what it is because I'm not in the locker room with those guys. You can just tell that there's something wrong, and I think that it's going to be fixed. I really do. I think that this is a cultural thing that could have been fixed once again last offseason. Hired the new head coach, gave him an offseason to work with the culture, fix all these things. Because even though I think the roster isn't as great as people thought it was at the beginning of the season, I think it still could be better than it's looking right now. Like, I think this season could have been saved. They could have gone, I don't know, 7-5, probably not 8-4, but they could have been at least competitive in some of these games. I mean, they lost by 14, 16, and 18 points to Stanford, Utah, and Oregon State, not respectively. Some of those combinations were off, but those were the point values. And then 29 points. Like, I don't think they had to be this bad. This situation was avoidable, and I think that for that very reason, it's also something that can be fixed, and it won't take 10 years to fix it. I think they could be decent within the next couple of years. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I think an underrated point is, after specifically last night's loss, people are quick to mention on Twitter, social media, whatever, the players quit. There was no fight. I find that really hard to believe. When you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, Division I football player, you're not going to quit like that. You're going to want to play to the end. You're going to want to play to win. And even if you're losing, you just want to play to just get better and make a name for yourself. I find that very hard to believe that people say, oh, players don't care. There's no fight, no pride. They don't want to play for the colors. That's just pretty laughable in my opinion. And I think, the whole program needs a cultural shift, needs a change. And I think it's going to be refreshing for the players that have been around during Clay Helton's tenure, particularly maybe the sophomores, juniors if they stay around. It's going to be refreshing to have a new face, and it's going to obviously inject some new life into this program that's been dead for about 3-4 years. And it'll get better. It'll get better, whether they could even, at least by the way the Pac-12 is looking, they could be somewhat competitive even next year. Obviously, it depends on who's coming back, who they get in the recruiting cycle. Because they obviously lost some big names already. Damani Jackson, Michael Williams, decommit. It goes somewhere else now. Those are some big losses. So, it'll be interesting. And I'm curious to see if some juniors who were planning on heading to the draft now decide maybe we should stick around for a year since they haven't really had that type of year that they might have expected.
Yeah, and we're gonna run a little late here because we started late, and so we have a lot to talk about. But I think this is also something that segues into our next topic, which is there very well might be some checking out that's taking place. Like guys might not be invested now as they were in the beginning of the season. I think that it's both not ideal but also somewhat understandable. I think that the whole like pride thing is it's less that they don't care and more that at this point it's just like apathy. It's like you're not playing to hold on to pride at this point because there's no pride, like there's no dignity that can like really be restored. I think at this point it's like, maybe it's let's get done with the season, let's just get out of here. But I think it's just largely like what else is there to play? Like Anthony, what are the stakes even left? Like, does this any of this matter? Especially now that the UCLA game's over. Like, I'm honestly like at a loss to find a source of motivation, and I don't blame people who don't want to play in this Cal game because it doesn't matter because the season's over. I don't think that that's because they don't care. I think it's because maybe they care to the point where they're like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't know. Maybe that's making excuses, but it just seems like it's something different than they're not invested or they don't have heart or they don't have fire. Because I think that's it's like it's along those lines, but it's a little bit different if that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm splitting hairs and saying the same thing here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's nothing at stake. I mean, bowl game. Geez, what is it? Jimmy Kimmel, the LA Bowl. I mean, there's no pride in playing in that. No point. Maybe you could say, oh, we got some bowl experience, but okay, maybe you win that bowl game. Nobody's really gonna care. You still got a under 500 record. No one's gonna pout about or brag about the Jimmy Kimmel bowl game win. So really, the only thing that's at stake right now is just trying to get some development, trying to get some gameplay, maybe try out some different looks, get some freshmen involved. Dante Williams, I think, was the one who mentioned where there's a lot of freshmen who are maybe planning on redshirting, but now have the number of snaps where they can't redshirt. So if you're in that position, you might as well try to get more reps for them. And then you mentioned too, if players sit out of the Cal game, maybe there's a couple players that are interested in the draft and they decide, I don't want to play, I don't want to risk getting hurt. They stay out, creates more opportunities for other players. That's really all that's left. Just try to develop, try to get Jackson Dart as many reps as possible. I think it would be no reason to bring back Keaton Slovis at all. Let him rest, let him get healthy. You don't know what he's thinking. I would, like I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if he just transfers out. But bowl game, I don't think it's necessary. I think Dante Williams has said if there was a bowl game, they'd play. I think that's more of just saying he wants to play in a bowl game just to say it. Obviously, you're not going to say, oh, we don't want to play in a bowl game. So really not much at stake anymore. I think a lot of players and fans and coaches are just waiting for the season to end, hire the new coach, and let's see what happens after that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, look, people are going to say, just as you said, people are going to say we want to play in bowl games because that's why you play the game. Blah blah blah. It's not. You don't play the game so that you can make the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl or something like that. You play the game so you can go to a Rose Bowl, a Pac-12 championship, college football playoff. I don't know. What a concept. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like this. It's this weird dynamic where you obviously want to win the last two games, but like you do that, season goes on for another 2 weeks. You play in a meaningless bowl game. It's like, do you want that? It's like it's almost like you want to win the games, but like not to like reap the benefits of playing in the games. At least that's what I think. That's what I'm sure a lot of fans think. I can't speak for players, obviously. There's certainly probably a lot of them that want to get reps and want to showcase their talents for the draft and want to start developing and getting ready for next season. So, there's certainly incentives to play in the bowl game for them. But yeah, I think from like a program-wide fan morale kind of thing, it would look bad to go under 500 to be 5-7 or 4-8. But honestly, like going 6-6 the way that they have, I don't know if it would look all that much better. I mean, even if you wouldn't finish the season with a 7-6 record because you win these next two games and then win the bowl game, it's like, okay, that doesn't make things any better. I mean, I get like finishing strong is important and all that, but I don't really think it matters. I guess that kind of answers my question on do you even want a bowl game? It's like it is what it is, I guess. If they make a bowl game, great, happy for them, whatever. But I don't even know if all of them are super, enticed by the idea of playing an extra 2 weeks longer than they have to. Honestly, I don't even know if the idea of playing in a Cal game an extra week longer than they have to is like, okay, great, we're going to lose to UCLA, then to BYU probably, and then we're going to go on the road to Cal for this game that means literally nothing, like right before finals at that. So like,
Yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to speak for these players. I guess I'm just trying to speak of if I was a player and I had the season that had been going on right now. I don't know if there are many incentives to really want to play in this bowl game. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe I guess the incentive is you get to play in SoFi.
That'd be cool.
Some people might not be able to play there. Obviously, incentive for us, we get to cover a game in SoFi.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, geez, yeah, that Cal game. Obviously, we got to mention too real quick. 8:30 start time. Talk about trying to bury the lead right there. Just get rid of the game. Put it at 8:30 p.m. the day after the Pac-12 championship game. I'll be surprised. I mean, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Miller Moss gets some playing time. You might as well just throw him in there and see what he could do.
You should. Yeah, you should.
Yeah, why not? At this point, I mean, that'll be like a practice squad scrimmage type business there, but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, one more note about the Cal game timing before we kind of wrap up here. Like, I get the concept of because it's on Championship Saturday, like putting it after all the other games that people will watch your games. But if people are really going to tune in to this USC Cal game, like at 8 o'clock, 8:30, whatever it is on a Saturday night, they'll watch that at any point. Like you're not that small, and it's going to be small contingent of fans that are going to watch that game. Like they're going to watch that game no matter what time that game is, and if they're not going to watch the game, they're not going to watch the game. Like I promise you, most people who would watch USC Cal when the stakes are like literally nothing care so much about these teams and so much about watching these two teams specifically that if it's on during the SEC championship or the Big Ten championship, they'll do a split screen or have two monitors or figure something out like that. Like I just don't. You're like catering to people who are theoretically going to like wind down from an exciting day of SEC championship, Big Ten championship, Big 12 championship, AC like with USC Cal. Like nobody's gonna watch this game, and the small number of people that would watch it, probably the same whether it was at 8:30 or 1 p.m. That's not. I don't have a TV programming. Like I've never studied this stuff super intensely, but from just like a sociological standpoint, it kind of feels like this 8 o'clock game is pointless. I'm also biased because game starts at 8, doesn't end until 11:30. I'm not out of the press box until 1:30 or 2 a.m., which is not ideal. And the original game is going to be 12:30, so I'd be home at my place in the Bay Area at like 6, which would have been really great. So maybe I'm just bitter about that. But this game should not be at 8 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well run it at like 9 a.m. I mean, like you said, people are still going to, I mean, whoever was interested is going to watch. And it's 8 p.m., right? Or 8:30?
One of those.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's still bad anyways. A 30-minute difference. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, USC still has to get through the BYU game before that Cal one. Maybe we're overlooking that. Do you have predictions for that game?
I have a prediction, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the lowest attendance in a really long time.
I like that too.
I have to say that because it's Thanksgiving weekend, ranked BYU, no chance that the student section is even going to be 1/3 filled up. I saw a tweet today. Yeah. Someone sold his student tickets for about $5. I mean, that's like half a Chipotle burrito right there for student section tickets against BYU. So, I mean, I'm predicting a good 30,000, probably less. But
that would be bad.
It'll be interesting. That's probably what I'm looking forward to the most. I don't even care about the game. I just want to see how many people actually show up. That's my prediction. Yeah,
I think if this isn't the lowest attendance game of the season, it's because of BYU fans who made the trip from Provo. And those fans are good. I had some interactions with their fans after I went viral for a thing I made on this show, actually. Well, viral in BYU football Twitter, which is, only a certain degree of viral virality, whatever. Anyway, that game is this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. It'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a blowout, but what do I know?
Yeah, it'll probably be a blowout. Just the usual. There's really nothing else to say.
Cool. Well, talking about blowouts is what we do. Anthony and I are experts at that at this point. So that's what we'll do. Or even if it's closer, even if USC wins, who knows? Maybe it makes the Cal game a little more interesting. Either way, we'll be back next Sunday at 8 p.m. to discuss it all. Until then, everybody make sure to follow us on all of our various social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. Check us out on our website at dashsports.tv, and make sure to check out all of our other great Dash Sports shows from Dash Sports shows from all across the Pac-12 and the other shows we do as well. Anthony, any parting words before we sign off?
Hey, I just hope for a good game. That's all I hope. Just the therapy should happen over Thanksgiving. Just stuff yourself, forget about USC for a moment. Just eat a lot of food. Maybe it'll make you feel better. I don't know. That's what I'm gonna try to do.
That's right. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving week. Safe travels. Enjoy this time. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays of the year. I'm looking forward to it. Watch some NFL. That'll be a better if you want to forget about USC but not football entirely. Thanksgiving football is one of the best traditions in sports. Everybody have a nice week. We'll talk to you again on next Sunday night. See you later.